1950s high school baseball phenom.
He holds the Connecticut strikeout record. For high schools in a 9-inning game, he struck out 24 batters in one game.
Being as young as I was, I just thought we were going to baseball games and could not quite figure out what all the hullabaloo was about.
It was a game where he had every scout in the major league watching him.
His senior year, there were just scouts galore.
Struck out 24 batters and walked only 4, and pitched a 2-hitter.
Steve could bring it. In those days, we didn't know anything about a radar gun or whatever. We just knew someone threw the ball hard.
He and his parents decided that they would sign with the Baltimore Orioles.
Frank McGowan, who signed my brother, who was a super person, he rode with him to Knoxville on the train, and said Steve never said a word the whole way down. He was very quiet, very much to himself, but there was a lot in there.
1963, Baltimore Orioles prize pitching prospect.
He was probably blessed with the greatest left arm that anybody in the world ever had.
Threw the ball as hard as anybody that I've ever seen in professional baseball.
Dalkowski's ball was just always jumping. It was alive, it was sparkling, it was electric.
He's got to be the hardest thrower of all time.
The hardest thrower I have ever watched propel a baseball.
Dalkowski threw the ball maybe 110, maybe 115 miles an hour.
Fastest I've ever seen.
Was wilder than anyone I've ever seen.
Grab your helmets, run behind buildings, because this guy throws unguided missiles and he doesn't know where they're going.
I don't think there's been anybody like Steve Dalkowski. Somebody who was almost myth and legend.
The ball hit the umpire's mask straight on. It broke it in 3 pieces.
He's the only pitcher in the history of baseball who hit a scout in a concession stand.
Dalkowski takes the baseball into the realm of being a deadly weapon.
Then one fateful day.
The tragic part of his career was that the night that he was measured for a uniform and ostensibly had made the club, he went out to pitch an exhibition game against the New York Yankees.
Pitching against the Yankees at Miami Stadium.
Suffered an arm injury and was never the same.
In effect, the end of his major league career.
His world came crashing down.
I was playing first base at that time, and he was trying to get a little bit extra on the slider to Roger Maris, and I heard his elbow pop. And it was a pretty sad sound, you know, and that was just about it for him.
He didn't make the club that year. He never made it back.
We wound up releasing Steve from our organization.
He still threw the ball quite well, but people who had seen him before and could compare, they said, you know, he was just a shadow of himself as far as the great legend of the tremendous fastball that he had possessed a few years before.
By 1966, his major league career was over before it had even begun.
I wish that the world could have got a chance to see him like a bunch of us Oriole minor leaguers did.
The most God-given ability of any one pitcher that I've ever had.
Many players that have made it couldn't have scratched the ability of a Steve Dalkowski, but yet they made it and he did it.
I blew it.
Had Steve Dalkowski ever been able to saddle his talents, Steve Dalkowski was going to the Hall of Fame.
I wasn't no finesse pitcher. I just let it all hang out.
He don't say too much about regretting any of it. One morning about 5 o'clock, well, I picked him up and we drove to Las Vegas and got married. Brother, that was a mistake.
Drinking was part of life.
I just had that drinking problem, and then I just worked in the fields. A lot of them years, nobody knew where I was. When you're down and out and on the streets and you got a home, you don't want to bother nobody.
And eventually, sister got him back to New Britain, where he is now in a convalescent home.
I'm very lucky because I have him back.
Throws the ball faster than anybody that ever lived. Anybody.